A stone wall 30 feet tall, no mortar, no cement, nothing holding it together but perfect craft. It has stood for 700 years. The year is 1871. A German explorer hacks through the bush of southern Africa. He is looking for treasure, for the mythical mines of King Solomon. What he finds instead stops him cold. A city, not ruins, not rubble. A city of stone rising from the African savanna. Curved walls stretching for 800 feet, towers 30 feet high. 1 million stone blocks, not one of them held by mortar. He stands there for a long time, and then he writes in his journal, "This could not have been built by Africans." That one sentence would corrupt the history of this place for the next 100 years. Archaeologists would be expelled from the country for saying otherwise. Evidence would be destroyed. Layers of history scraped away. A government would suppress its own scientists to protect a lie. But the city remained, silent, patient, carved from granite by hands whose names we will never know, waiting for the world to finally ask the right question. Not who built this, but why did it take so long for anyone to believe the answer? Let us start with what is actually there. Great Zimbabwe sits on the southern edge of the Zimbabwe Plateau. It covers nearly 1,800 acres. At its center are three structures: the hill complex, the Great Enclosure, and the valley ruins. The hill complex sits 260 feet above the valley floor. From the top you can see everything, every approach, every road, every threat from the horizon. The builders knew exactly what they were doing. Below the hill sits the Great Enclosure. The local Karanga people called it Imbahuru, the House of the Great Woman. Its outer wall is 800 feet long and 32 feet tall. 1 million stone blocks. Not one held by mortar. Just pure geometry, pure weight, pure skill. Inside the Great Enclosure stands a tower, 30 feet high, completely solid. No entrance, no room inside, no known purpose. It simply stands there, like a statement. Archaeologists have been arguing about what it means for over a century. Nobody has won that argument yet. Here is what makes Great Zimbabwe extraordinary. It was not isolated. It was the center of a global trading network. The city sat on the shortest route between the gold fields of the interior and the ports of the Indian Ocean coast. Gold and ivory flowed out. The world flowed in. Archaeologists have found Syrian glass, Chinese porcelain from the Ming Dynasty, Persian bowls, Arabian coins, coral. At its peak, Great Zimbabwe housed between 12,000 and 20,000 people. While Europe was fighting off plague and famine, a city in the interior of southern Africa was running a sophisticated economy connected to 3 continents, and nobody in the Western world had heard of it. Now we come back to that explorer, Karl Mauch. He looked at the walls, he looked at the tower, he looked at the precision stonework, and he decided this could not be African. His evidence was almost comically thin. He found a piece of wood in one of the lintels. It smelled like his pencil, therefore it must be cedar from Lebanon, therefore Phoenicians must have brought it, therefore the city must have been built by people from the ancient Middle East. That was the logic. A pencil smell, a century of lies built on a pencil smell. Behind Mauch came Cecil Rhodes. He told the local Karanga chiefs that he had come to see the ancient temple which once upon a time belonged to white men. He hired an archaeologist named J. Theodore Bent to prove the point. Bent dug everywhere. He found pottery, spearheads, bronze axes, gold-working tools. Every single artifact matched objects used by local Karanga people living nearby. The evidence was screaming. Africans built this city. Bent concluded, a northern race from Arabia, akin to the Phoenicians. The evidence did not matter. The conclusion had been decided before the digging started. Then Rhodes appointed a journalist named Richard Hall as official curator of Great Zimbabwe. Hall decided to remove what he called the filth and decadence of African occupation. He scraped away up to 12 feet of stratified archaeological deposits across the entire site. Centuries of evidence, gone in months. An archaeologist who visited shortly after called it reckless blundering, worse than anything he had ever seen. The damage was permanent. In 1905, a real archaeologist arrived, David Randall-Maciver. He did something none of his predecessors had done. He listened to the people who actually lived there, and what he found confirmed what the evidence had always said. Every artifact, every structure, all of it African, all of it medieval. The response was fury. Decades later, the white government of Rhodesia made it official policy to suppress these findings. Researchers who confirmed the African origins of Great Zimbabwe were pressured. Some were forced out of the country entirely. Not because the evidence was unclear, because the truth was politically inconvenient. Zimbabwe achieved independence in 1980, and the mysteries that remain are genuine ones. What is not a mystery anymore is the core question. Africans built Great Zimbabwe, sophisticated, organized, connected to the world. Africans. The real mystery of Great Zimbabwe is not who built it. The real mystery is this: why was it so important to some people that the answer be anything other than what it was? Why did colonizers spend decades destroying evidence, suppressing scientists, and inventing exotic origins for a city that local people had been living beside for centuries? The answer is not about Zimbabwe. It is about what happens when a civilization needs to believe it is the only one, when it needs the rest of the world to have been waiting to be discovered, waiting to be civilized, waiting for someone else to arrive and explain them to themselves. Great Zimbabwe never waited for anything. It rose, it traded, it built walls that stood for 7 centuries without a drop of mortar. And when the world finally stopped lying about it, the walls were still there. They still are.